Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kyle Was Famous. Huh, I wonder what makes him not famous anymore. Huh. Anyway, let's start the game.
Kyle woke up. He is famous.
And apparently this game is voiced. Awesome. So, yeah, let's see how this game works.
Kyle is host of the most popular talk show in recent memory, Stay Up Late with Kyle.
The popular late talk show. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Stay Up Late with Kyle has grown in popularity quickly in the last year, and the public has noticed.
Well, yeah, he was famous. Huh.
Inside has called Kyle a most excellent dumpy white man.
Dumpy.
Top Tech noted that Kyle is inspiring youth to explore STEM fields.
Hold on a second. I'm going to increase the volume since we have an error, eh? There we go.
Most other talk shows are dedicated to discussing Kyle and his personal details.
Ooh, what are we going to talk about, Kyle?
Most online videos are best-of clips taken from Kyle's latest broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
The eye of the world is upon Kyle.
All hail Kyle, the most famous celebrity.
Tonight is Kyle's most important guest interview yet.
Oh, go.
Stay Up Late with Kyle will be featuring Rachel May. She is a
Rachel
kind, lovely
May?
philanthropist.
I have no idea who that is. Oh, she's a kind and lovely philanthropist. I have no idea what a philanthropist is. Oh well.
She is dear to the hearts of many. This interview requires preparation.
Okay, so what do you want me to do?
Kyle cracked his eyes open, knowing today is his last chance to prepare for the interview.
Well, that was sloppy.
Kyle has 30 hours left. He must choose his actions wisely.
Does preparing take that much time? Huh. Okay, we make a choice. We wither away, change job, exit the bed, or browse social media. Well, we got 30 hours, so let's browse social media, I suppose.
Kyle started to scroll through news articles on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
Stay Up Late with Kyle ranked #1 and #2 show on television.
Awesome.
New East Bridge being constructed after being found to not actually exist. Authorities investigating.
Wait, what? New East Bridge being constructed after being found do not actually exist? Huh? How do you build a bridge that doesn't exist? Someone was lying. Probably tax fraud.
Another grand larceny and crime spree streak. Evidence points to perpetrator fleeing the country.
Ooh.
Rachel May to unexpectedly leave the country on very, very long vacation after interview tonight.
Is she going to get killed?
Who is the bug vigilante recently spotted pursuing larcenists?
Huh.
Kyle fails to show up to several charity events.
Well, that's awkward.
Bug vigilante shows up to charity events with fresh baked pastries. Donations flourish.
Damn you, Buck Vigilante.
Hot dogs making resurgence as fuel source for both humans and tugboats.
Yeah, I'm done here. We open the closet. We choose an outfit.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is.
A suit of armor? Slick suit? I think we're supposed to take a slick suit.
Kyle miraculously crammed his dumpy body into the suit. The chest pockets were filled with random knickknacks.
I am a late night host show, so yeah. Well, let's sit at the desk. Check, write notes for interview.
Kyle wrote down his first question.
Am I a mother? Is your mother a mother? Are you a mother? Oh, wait. Are you a mother is the correct question. Well, let's do what we always do. Let's take the serious route first, and then let's joke around later.
Kyle wrote down his second question.
One night. Ever eaten a raw egg whole? Beef mashed or blended?
Kyle wrote down his third question.
I purposely ran over a puppy. Not that I would do that. The worst thing I ever did was kill a squirrel. I mean, we were hungry and we were hunting. And I didn't know my friends didn't like me killing squirrels.
Kyle wrote down his last question.
Are you guilty? What's your guilty pleasure?
Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from the desk.
Okay, back to the desk. Checking desk. Do. Oh, carnival music. Okay. Back to room. And let's scavenge a bit.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for...
Bugs.
Kyle started to pick between the fuzz of his bedroom carpet, hoping to catch a stray beetle or two. Soon, he had a small handful of various insects, dead and alive.
Eat them.
Kyle threw back his head and crammed the sticky, wriggling mass into his mouth. He felt refreshed.
Tasty. Okay, back to bedroom.
Kyle hurried to the set.
Okay.
Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled.
Approach Rachel.
"Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here." Kyle responded.
Scream and spin in circles. No. Remember what I said? First we're being serious, then we take the jokes.
"And I as well, Rachel," answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. "You are a most welcome guest."
Shake hands.
After other mild exchanges of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast.
Oh yeah.
A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Ooh, sounds serious.
"Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle."
Introduce Rachel.
Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor.
Ooh. I'm sorry. I guess we did end up with a joke. Sorry. That one time I couldn't stay serious.
Rachel looked at Kyle, concerned, gave a couple coughs, and decided to play it cool and keep the show running. Kyle stopped, then vomited again, then continued with a shaky voice.
Okay.
"Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction."
More.
Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. "Hello, Kyle," she said. "I'm glad to be here." "Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss. So we might as well dive right in," said Kyle. "I'm very ready," said Rachel with a winning smile. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
I don't remember writing this. Or maybe I did. Anyway, what are some diet tips? Because apparently bugs aren't healthy.
"Rachel, you managed to keep such a thin and healthy figure," said Kyle. "What is your best diet tip?" "Well, a good diet starts with a plan," answered Rachel. "And don't break it. Cheat days can turn into a habit."
True.
"But," she continued, "that doesn't mean a midnight snack here and there isn't allowed." She smiled. Kyle looked at his flabby self, decided not to comment, and moved on. Kyle asked another question.
What's your guilty pleasure?
We all have one. What's your guilty pleasure?
Ooh, well, that's an easy answer, said Rachel. Dipping pickles in chocolate sauce.
It actually might sound tasty when you think about it. Maybe the taste of pickles may contradict the chocolate, but I guess I can give it a shot one day. Anyway, more.
It might sound strange, but it's tangy and sweet at the same time. I eat it far too often.
Rachel smiled sweetly.
Well, you got me wanting to try it, so more.
Kyle asked another question.
What's your funniest story?
You've been involved in a lot of different things, said Kyle. But what's your funniest story?
More.
Well, that's a great question, Kyle, said Rachel.
More.
I think the story I always remember is the first time I tried to make dinner for my family.
Ah.
In the soup I made, I swapped out the water with milk and tipped the whole jar of salt in the pot. While my family was
Awkward.
sick from trying to eat it, I swiped their things and locked myself in my room.
Rachel laughed elegantly.
Wait, that was funny? I start to think it might have been said later.
Kyle decided to move on.
Yep.
Kyle asked another question.
Are you a mother?
Rachel, I and many others would love to know, are you a mother? Kyle looked up from his notes.
Well, being a single woman with a career, she answered, that's not something that has crossed my mind.
Rachel smiled genuinely at Kyle.
Oh, yeah.
Very reasonable indeed, said Kyle. He referenced his paper of questions. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper.
Okay.
Well, Rachel, he said, I think that's all I was planning on asking you.
Yep.
If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return?
Asked Rachel, smiling one more time.
Sure, the jokes will come later. Just be patient.
Do you prepare for your interviews in advance? Because you seem very together.
Yep.
Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over.
Ah.
Kyle returned home knowing the interview had gone well.
That's good.
But as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing.
Yes, the jokes, which are coming right now. Bow, 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 bow. Oh, I can just go straight to the interview right now. Okay.
Kyle hurried to the set.
Okay.
Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an...
Yeah, we know.
As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled.
Good evening, Kyle, she said.
Yeah, we know.
Kyle responded.
Scream and spin in circles.
Kyle stretched his arms wide, tilted his neck upwards, and... was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to start the show.
Insist.
Kyle shoved his producer out of the way, spread his arms wide, and began to scream loudly. He began to rotate slowly, screaming throughout, lightly brushing his hands against the faces of Rachel and his producer.
Awesome.
After several minutes, Kyle was finished. He slowly put his hands to his sides and smiled. I'm ready, said Kyle.
Don't you mean my body is ready?
Rachel blinked at Kyle, shrugged, and walked over to her seat.
Start the interview.
A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking...
Yeah, we know.
Kyle vomited all of...
Yeah, we know.
Rachel looked at Kyle.
Yeah, we know.
Kyle stopped. Tonight, I...
There we
have
go.
the
Produce
pleasure of
CD.
As Rachel started to reply, Kyle clamped his hand over her mouth. Hush, he said. I need to do something before we can continue. Kyle removed the CD he had brought to the interview and placed it in a nearby player deck. The sound system kicked into action, piping Kyle's music throughout the studio. Rachel briefly listened, a blank expression on her face. Smiling, Kyle closed his eyes and enjoyed the music for a moment. Then, He spoke.
Okay.
All right. Now everything's ready. Let's begin. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
Okay. So everything else is still the same, huh? I expected more funny.
You've been involved in a lot of... It's an old...
Do-do-do-do-do.
Suddenly, the wall next to Kyle exploded.
Oh?
Through the hole stepped several men in dazzling, flamboyant costumes of bright color. They held guitars, pianos, and other instruments.
Okay, this is new.
Kyle, said the man in front, we are the band of your childhood.
The band of my childhood? Now that's awesome!
Kyle's jaw dropped, smiling. He put his hands to his cheeks. His eyes sparkled.
Oh yeah.
We have come to issue a grievance about playing our music on TV without a license.
Seriously?
The man took his guitar in both hands and began slamming Kyle's face repeatedly.
What an asshole.
After several hours, the grievance had been sufficiently repaid. The band left through the hole they had created in the wall.
Okay.
Kyle lay on the floor, thinking about what had happened. Rachel slowly slid to his side.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling okay, Kyle? She asked. She had a concerned expression on her face. Have you ever met your childhood idol, Rachel?
Mm-hmm.
Asked Kyle. The person you looked up to for as long as you can remember?
Not really.
I can't say I have, said Rachel. Kyle raised both fists into the air. It feels amazing!
I can't believe that.
Kyle spent the rest of Rachel's interview chatting happily about meeting his lifelong favorite band. Rachel listened and asked questions politely, seeming unfazed that her moment on TV had been uprooted.
Yep.
Eventually, the studio was out of time and the broadcast shut off. Kyle and Rachel walked out of the studio together. Kyle was grinning widely. The two said their goodbyes and walked off in separate directions.
Okay.
As Kyle walked home, he felt like the interview had been everything he had hoped it to be.
I didn't expect a childhood band to randomly appear in an interview.
Kyle had gotten everything he had ever wanted as a child.
Being beaten the shit out of your favorite band? Oh well, reset to the interview because there's still one more option. I hope it does something though.
Kyle hurried to the...
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Kyle responded.
Um...
And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle. After other mild... A moment after seating, the studio... Good evening, everyone, said Kyle.
No, apparently I messed up.
Tonight,
Oh, no.
I have
Here
the
it is.
pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction.
Become Rachel May.
However, said Kyle, suddenly dropping his voice, Rachel May is not sitting next to me.
Oh?
She is not new to this show. She did not walk in before me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, said Kyle, I am Rachel May.
Ooh, are you Rachel
looked
May?
at Kyle, confused, and silently mouthed the words, You are who? Kyle stood up quickly and threw his arm high above him, pointing upwards. I have never been, Kyle, he proclaimed. I have never been the host of the show Stay Up Late with Kyle.
Okay.
Kyle looked and pointed directly at the camera. I am here for but one reason, to interview myself. Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier.
Okay.
Kyle read the first question on his list. Are you a mother? I'm glad you asked, said Kyle. Yes, I am. Or, yes, you are, said Kyle, trying to figure out who was talking to whom. Or, I am... In a fit, Kyle continued to re-answer his question, trying to come up with the correct phrasing. Rachel spoke up. Kyle, I'm not a mother at all, so it doesn't really matter. Lies! Impossible! I don't believe it! Kyle banged his fist on the chair.
Oh, God.
Kyle, I've never been in a position for that. I've really just focused on my career. All you need to do is ask. Rachel smiled sweetly. Kyle was silent for a moment. Then, realizing he had no idea what he was doing, he decided to let Rachel talk.
That's the smart move.
So, what about your career? Do you enjoy what you do? How'd you get into it?
Mm-hmm.
The two continued talking for the better part of an hour, Kyle asking questions and Rachel answering accordingly.
Okay.
Eventually, Kyle's producer signaled to Kyle that it was time to stop. The broadcast ended. The crew, Rachel and Kyle, said their goodbyes and returned home.
Okay.
But Kyle continued to think about Rachel after the interview ended.
Mm-hmm.
Something about Rachel had struck Kyle. He wasn't exactly sure what,
Maybe you fell in love?
but he did know that he was interested to hear that she was single.
He did fell in love. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Anyway, we've done everything we could, so reset. Okay, so wither away?
Kyle decided to stay put and wither away. Kyle withered successfully and died.
Wait, what?
Kyle is now a ghost. This does not relieve him of his responsibilities.
Oh. Well, that sucks. Although, I guess it makes sense, considering what Forint has been through. Okay, so we're... I'm a ghost, I can wear clothes. Well, in that case, let's make the questions. Right notes for the interview.
Kyle wrote down his first question.
Am I a mother?
Kyle wrote down his second question.
Ever eaten a raw egg whole?
Kyle wrote down his third question.
I purposely ran over a puppy. Wait, let's restart it. Wither away, shucks,
Kyle is...
get out of bed, sit at desk, write notes.
Kyle
There we
wrote
go.
down his first
Is your
question.
mother a mother?
Kyle
There we
wrote
go.
down his second
Ever
question.
eaten a raw egg whole?
Kyle wrote down his third question.
I purposely ran over a puppy.
Kyle wrote down his last question.
Are you guilty?
Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from the desk.
Okay, we're done. Checking desk drawer. Assorted change.
Kyle scooped up the change scattered around the desk drawer.
Okay. Flashlight.
Kyle grabbed the flashlight, but after jiggling the switch, he found it was out of batteries.
Well, that sucks. Anyway, back to room. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for...
Resource.
Kyle began to comb through the damp piles of filth and mold on his floor in search of helpful items. After finding and eating a few bits of crumbs and old cheese, Kyle found something much more important.
Okay.
Indeed, it was the corpse of Harry, a friend that had gone missing years ago while at Kyle's house.
Not Harry. Unless it's Potter. Potter. But I guess it's not Harry Potter, so... Not Harry.
Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day with Harry business.
Let's deal with Harry.
Kyle hoisted Harry onto his shoulder and took him outside.
Wait, how do I do that if I'm also a ghost?
Kyle began dragging Harry's body down the street, drawing many, many stairs.
Once again, how do I do that if I'm a ghost?
Kyle knew exactly where he needed to take Harry's corpse. On a lovely playdate, just the two of them. Kyle and Harry started at the arcade. Kyle used Harry's arms to operate the joysticks and push buttons.
I still don't know how he does that, because I'm a ghost. Oh well.
After 5 or 6 different games, the two friends had enough tickets for a single candy bar.
Wow.
They took their prize to the local park for eating. Kyle tried to feed some of the chocolate bar to Harry, but Harry seemed to not have an appetite. After eating,
yeah, this
Kyle
sucks.
noticed a nearby playground. He dragged Harry over. Kyle tried to figure out a way to swing Harry onto the swing set, but lacking the ability to grip, Harry kept falling out.
And it sucks.
Instead, Kyle started to lug Harry to the top of the slide and shove him down time and time again.
Okay.
Finally, Kyle took Harry to the movies to see as many popular films as their pocket change allowed.
Ah, that's sweet.
Kyle had plenty of pocket change. He eagerly approached the ticket window.
Okay.
Kyle bought 2 tickets to A Love Romance. After getting inside, Kyle left Harry to go find a restroom. By the time Kyle had finished using the restroom, he had forgotten that he brought Harry along.
Ah, what
Kyle
an
watched
idiot.
A Love Romance by himself. Harry's corpse sat on a bench in the atrium. While Kyle was in the movie, a beautiful thing happened.
What?
Harry's corpse, imbued with the power of friendship and love, was reanimated.
Ooh, awesome. I'm still a ghost, though.
Harry's old, rotten flesh gained color and life. His fingernails regrew. His missing eye came back.
Ooh.
By the time the movie was over, Harry was able to greet Kyle with a large, friendly hug as his old self.
I guess movies have powerful strength magic.
Kyle was confused, but delighted to have his long-lost friend meet him on his way out of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
The two made plans to get drinks together and parted ways for the day.
Okay.
Kyle returned home, forgetting about the interview with Rachel.
Oh, awkward. Kyle helped a friend. Okay, so I guess I need to make a few changes.
Kyle decided to stay.
I'm still gonna be a ghost,
Kyle
though.
is now a ghost.
Sit at the desk. Write the same questions.
Kyle wrote. Kyle. Kyle. Kyle ripped.
There we go. Also, feel free to take a drink every time you hear the name Kyle.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate. Kyle began to comb through the damp pile. After finding and eating a few bits of crumbs and old. Indeed, it was. Kyle.
Leave him for another
Kyle
time.
decided Harry could wait another day and quietly folded a pile of filth back on top of him.
Okay. Up, scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for.
Gossip?
Kyle firmly pressed his ear into the carpet, hoping to hear some stray words from the neighbors below. I heard Rachel May is going on a trip out of the country soon. Oh, girlfriend, tell me more. Well, what I will tell you is that every night I don a mask that looks like a bug and fight misdoers.
Ooh.
There was a stunned silence. Then a door opened, and someone exited the neighbor's apartment.
Okay. We still got 6 hours. Exit bedroom to hallway? Leave apartment? Hound around? I mean,
Kyle
I'm
felt
still a
sudden
ghost.
pull on his heart. Had he abandoned his job as a ghost? Was he fulfilling his spooky, ethereal role that he'd accepted while lying in bed this morning? Kyle realized he had no other choice. He must spend his day spooking about.
So, another non-interview related day. Okay.
Kyle decided he should make a plan about who or where he should spook.
Gabby or the interview. Gabby or the interview. The interview.
Kyle thought that it would be best to continue his daily course, but with a twist. Today, he would still go to his studio, but instead of conducting an interview, he would haunt.
Oh, yeah.
Excitedly, Kyle made his way to the studio early to find the best spot to conduct his ghostly duties.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna
The
be
studio
a
was
ghost
empty.
now.
Being so early, the crew wouldn't arrive for several hours. Kyle gleefully skipped around the building, finding the best spot for himself to hide.
You're a ghost. No one can see you.
After searching for some time, Kyle decided to hide behind the guest chair.
Okay.
Kyle quickly placed himself down and drew his legs to his chest.
Okay.
Soon, the crew began to arrive and set up for the interview that night.
Okay.
Invisible to all senses, Kyle went undetected. He watched as cameras were set up, screens were turned on, and pages were flipped.
Okay, so when is the good stuff coming?
Within an hour, Rachel walked into the studio.
Okay.
"Hey, everyone," said Rachel, smiling kindly. "I'm ready to get prepped. Who do I need to talk to first?" Kyle's producer approached her.
Okay.
"Thanks for being here, Rachel. You should really talk to Andre about makeup first, and then wait for when Kyle arrives."
But I'm a ghost.
Kyle,
Ooh.
knowing he was duping everyone, began to giggle uncontrollably.
Oh, yeah.
It was then that he, like clockwork, ceased to be a ghost. The studio grew silent. Everyone stared at Kyle, head down, clutching his legs and giggling at the floor.
Huh? But no one can see Kyle because he's a ghost.
Kyle froze. He had found himself in a situation he had not encountered before.
But you're a ghost.
Kyle started to crawl out of the studio on all fours, hoping his small form would avoid attracting more attention.
Okay.
Everyone wordlessly watched as Kyle slowly made his way across the stage, through the production set, and out the door. As soon as he was outside the studio, Kyle broke into an all-out sprint.
Okay.
Kyle made his way back to his apartment as quickly as possible.
Why?
Kyle sat in his kitchen and processed what had happened during his day.
You're a ghost.
He vowed that he would never haunt anything again.
Huh? What just happened? I mean, I guess that's the point of the game, but you're a ghost. Also, I didn't need to go this far back. Sorry.
Kyle decided...
Yeah, we're still gonna be a ghost. Anyway, we're not going to pay attention to that interview again, so... Small key.
Kyle...
And so the change.
Kyle's...
Back to the room. Exit the hallway. Leave apartment. Oh, right, I don't have the gossip yet. Return to bedroom. Scavenge for gossip.
Kyle...
What are you so happy about?
Well, what I will tell you... There was a stunt.
Okay. Anything else? No. Leave apartment. Visit tech store, I guess. Give review.
This phone, said Kyle, is several years old and has exposed wires coming out of the back.
Okay.
Kyle continued. Also, the screen has had issues ever since I used it to hammer nails into the wall.
Okay.
Furthermore, when I submerge it in water, I get severely shocked until it runs out of battery. The attendant looked at Kyle, pursed his lips, and said nothing. Feeling he had made his argument, Kyle decided to leave.
Okay. Now let's count around.
Kyle felt a sudden pull on his heart. Had he abandoned his job as a ghost?
Yep.
Was he fulfilling his spooky, ethereal role that he'd accepted while lying in bed this morning?
Yep.
Kyle realized he had no other choice. He must spend his day spooking about. Kyle decided he should make a plan about who or where he should spook.
Neighbor Gabby.
Kyle believed that Gabby would be delighted to have him spook about a bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Kyle started to slowly creep to Gabby's door in a very spooky way.
Yep.
He crouched by Gabby's door, cooing quietly and waiting for her to leave so he could cause her a spook.
Okay.
It didn't take long. Soon, Gabby exited her apartment and started walking towards her car.
Okay.
Kyle crept behind her, invisible to all senses.
Mm-hmm.
Gabby opened the driver's side door and got in. She seemed to be leaving for some errands.
Okay.
Kyle was struck with a wonderful idea.
Ooh, what could this wonderful, wonderful idea be?
Kyle started to run to the back of Gabby's car.
Okay.
Perhaps if he could catch her before she left, he could hide in the trunk.
Ooh.
Kyle could make noises as she drove. He could follow her around on her errand, knocking over small objects nearby.
That's brilliant.
Gabby put the car in reverse and floored the accelerator. Invisible to all senses, Kyle was crushed underneath the back tires of the car, creating a large boom.
You're a ghost.
Gabby figured she'd hit the curb. She put the car into forward and floored the accelerator again. Kyle became locked in an endless loop of Gabby trying to move her car out of her parking space, being run over repeatedly.
Awkward.
As the day started to wane and it drew closer to the time of Rachel's interview, Kyle ceased to be a ghost, per normal. Gabby neither noticed nor stopped.
Okay.
Kyle was forced to conduct Rachel's interview while being run over. Kyle's crew moved the filming set next to Gabby's apartment.
You can do that?
Rachel appeared. Kyle asked her many questions. They shared several laughs. The interview was successful. The
Good
sound
to
of
hear
Gabby
that.
flooring her car's accelerator drowned out large sections of the episode.
Okay, apparently that was not a good choice.
Kyle's first decision of the morning was made wisely. Kyle decided to stay put and wither away. Kyle withered successfully and died. Kyle exited his bed. Kyle made his way over to it. Kyle opened up the side drawer of his desk and Kyle grabbed the small key. Kyle.
Oh, okay,
Kyle-
we're pretty much getting
Kyle-
all my choices back, huh?
Kyle walked. Kyle walked. Kyle. Kyle. Kyle.
What are you so happy about?
There-
Mm-hmm.
Kyle. Kyle walked into the clean. This. Kyle. Further. The. Feel. Kyle.
Okay.
Had he. Was. Kyle just. Kyle believed that Gabby would be delighted to have.
Seriously?
Ky-
Okay, I can pretty much skip all this. Do. I guess maybe I could just be a ghost, but nope.
Kyle is.
Okay, now we've done that. Let's leave it. I'm just going
Kyle
for the other
Had he. Was.
on
Kyle-
that section.
Kyle decided he should
Spook
make a-
himself.
Kyle could think of nobody better to spook than himself.
There we go.
Kyle sat on the sidewalk and looked at the ground.
Mhm.
He took a deep breath. Kyle began to scream uncontrollably, as he had managed to spook himself by his very existence. Kyle jumped up from the sidewalk and began to run around, flailing his arms. Unfortunately, Kyle was unable to escape from the fact that he was himself. Kyle spent several minutes screaming. But as he screamed, Kyle realized it was becoming time for Rachel's interview.
Oh, I still have to do
Continuing to
that?
scream, Kyle traveled to his studio. That evening, Kyle tried to do well by his duties and conduct the interview with Rachel.
Awkward.
But being able to only express pure terror, the episode consisted only of Rachel watching him scream. The episode was very popular.
Good to know.
Kyle was asked to continue screaming in the next episode, and the next. Kyle's show was rebranded to Kyle is Scared with Kyle. The studio went on to produce many episodes. Kyle remained existentially terrified of himself.
Awesome. Let's see. Let's reset. Okay. What can we do now? You know, I still want to know more about that very, very long vacation.
Kyle
thingy.
started to scroll through news articles on Stay Up.
Do. I also
Who is-
noticed that all these cards are skipping my hours.
Kyle's phone exploded in his hands from overuse.
Oh, whoops. Let's see. I'm still going to make those questions though.
Kyle wrote down his first question.
Is your mother a mother?
Kyle
Ever
wrote
eaten
down
a
his
raw
second
egg
question.
hole?
Kyle wrote
I
down
purposely
his
ran
third
over a puppy.
Kyle
Are you
was-
guilty?
Kyle ripped.
There we go. Back to the room. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly
for
crouched
some
down on
gossip.
the floor. Kyle,
What are you so happy about?
well,
Do. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the
for
floor, realizing
resources. Because I'm
Kyle
not
began
dead
to
this
comb
time.
through the damp piles of filth and mold on his floor. After finding and eating a few bits of crumbs and old cheese, Kyle found something much more important.
What?
Indeed, it was the corpse of Harry, a friend that had gone
Okay.
missing years ago while at Kyle's house.
So you could also do this when you're not a ghost. Now it makes more sense.
Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day.
Yeah, leave him for another time. We got an
Kyle
interview
hurried
now.
to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity.
Cool.
As Kyle approached her, Rachel's smile quickly turned to shock as she realized Kyle had not put on clothes that day.
Whoops. I kind of forgot to do that. My bad.
Kyle waved and smiled broadly. Rachel uncomfortably averted her eyes. Kyle started making his rounds around the room, greeting each crew member, none of whom looked at him directly.
Awkward.
As it became apparent that Kyle had no intention of leaving, Rachel made some excuses and exited the set. One by one, the crew followed suit. Kyle was left all alone.
Awkward. Well, time to blow up our phone again.
Who is the bug? Kyle fails. Bug vigil. Hot dogs making. Phone model recalled. Techno Gym stores blame overuse by customers.
Oh, okay.
Kyle's phone exploded in his hands from overuse.
Open the closet this time around. Choose an outfit.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important.
Jeans and swimming.
Kyle decided on a fashion-forward, casual style. He could
Oh,
barely
yeah.
see out of the goggles.
Sit at desk. Write notes for interview.
Kyle wrote down.
Is your mother a mother?
Kyle-
Every-
Ky-
Yeah, it's the same question.
Kyle,
I just could never use them before, so back to room. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor.
Gossip.
What are you so happy about?
And exit the bedroom to hallway.
Kyle hurried to the set.
There we go.
Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity.
Oh yeah.
As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled.
Approach Rachel.
Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking for. Kyle responded.
Answer politely.
And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. You are a most welcome guest.
Shake hands.
After other mild exchanges of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast.
Okay.
A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Gossip about neighbor.
Good evening, everybody, said Kyle. My neighbor is a bug vigilante. With nothing more to say on the matter, he fell silent. Rachel, also on camera, stared at her hands and wondered when she was going to be introduced. The producer started cutting to different camera angles to break the tension. Kyle continued to remain silent and stare forward blankly.
Ooh.
After several minutes, neighbor Gabby walked out onto set.
Okay.
Hi, everyone, she said, smiling hollowly. My name is Gabby, and I'm not a bug vigilante. False. Kyle looked at Gabby and then returned to staring forwards. Gabby began to reply, but was interrupted by a bug-shaped intercom on her belt.
Bug girl,
It squawked.
a robbery's in progress on East 3rd. Report immediate.
Gabby threw the intercom on the ground and crushed it under her foot.
Ooh, awkward.
After a beat, she spoke tightly.
Something has come up suddenly and I must go.
Okay, bye-bye.
Gabby left the set. Well, said Kyle, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. Kyle got up, shook Rachel's hand again, and walked past the cameras, leaving her alone. Not knowing what else to do, the producer ended the broadcast. In the coming days, fans of both Rachel and Kyle dubbed this show as a masterpiece of television.
Because it was.
Stay Up Late with Kyle's online pages were updated to reflect this broadcast as the most popular ever.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle's producer later tried to have Rachel on the show again, but she was very, very, very busy.
Yeah, that's true. Kyle talked about Gabby. Reset to interview.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous...
Yeah, we know.
As Kyle responded. And I...
Shake hands.
After...
More.
A moment after...
Start broadcast.
Good evening, everyone.
Introduce Rachel.
Tonight, I have the pleasure of...
More.
Kyle motioned to Rachel, who's... In response, Kyle collapsed on the floor.
Sorry. I guess I did it too much.
From a combination of stressful preparation and not eating anything, Kyle had passed out.
Oh, that was the problem. Sorry.
Nobody in the studio quite knew what to do with him. They began to poke Kyle in the back to see if he moved. After a while, they ended the broadcast, shut off the lights, and went home.
Oh.
Kyle was left face first on the floor.
Awkward. Well, in that case, let's reset again. Open the closet. Choose an outfit.
Kyle decided...
Let's go casual. Go to the room. Sit at the desk. Write the same question again.
Kyle...
Back to desk. Back to room. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing...
Resources.
Kyle began... After... Indeed. Kyle...
Leave him alone.
Kyle decided...
Back to room. Sit at the desk. Check in desk drawer. So the change.
Kyle's...
Back to room. Leave apartment. Visit tech store. Give review free
This
sample.
phone, said Kyle, is several years old and... Kyle continued. Also, the screen has had issues ever since I used... Furthermore, when I submerge it in water, I get severely shocked until it runs out of battery. The attendant looked at Kyle, pursed his lips, and said nothing.
Okay.
Feeling he had made his argument, Kyle decided to leave.
Okay.
Kyle hurried to the set.
Okay.
Sitting across from his host chair was a...
Yeah, we know.
Kyle responded.
Answer politely.
And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle. After other mild exchanges of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel... A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Start broadcast.
Good evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking at the camera. Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle.
Introduce Rachel.
Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction.
More.
Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. Hello, Kyle, she said. I'm glad to be here.
More.
In response, Kyle collapsed on the floor.
Why? I ate something.
From a combination of stressful preparation and not eating anything, Kyle had passed out.
But I ate something.
Nobody in the studio quite knew what to do with him. After a while, Kyle was...
Well, I guess I'm going to eat bugs. Reset. Exit the bed. Open the closet. Choose an outfit.
Kyle decided...
Jeans and swimming.
Kyle...
Back to the room. Sit at the desk. Write notes.
Kyle...
Is your mother a mother?
Kyle wrote...
I know for a puppy.
Kyle...
Are you guilty?
Kyle...
Back to the desk. Back to the room. Scavenge
Kyle...
for bugs. More.
Soon, he had a small...
Eat immediately.
Kyle threw back his head and...
Back to bedroom. Was there anything more? Sit at the desk. Get the change.
Kyle scooped up the chain.
Exit the hallway. Oh, maybe I should do this. Move to the kitchen. Open fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
This is where I get the food. Thank you. I have no idea what condiments are, so do it.
Kyle started to grab condiments from the fridge, squirting them into his mouth with both hands.
Okay.
Ketchup, horseradish, and mayonnaise entered Kyle's mouth at a rate that soon overwhelmed his ability to swallow.
Okay.
Kyle spewed the excess condiment slurry across the kitchen, covering the furniture and walls. Kyle continued until all of the condiments had been emptied.
Okay.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair,
Yeah, we know.
Good. Kyle responded. And I... A moment...
Start broadcast.
Good evening, everyone, said
Introduce Rachel.
Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor. Rachel looked at Kyle, concerned, gave a couple coughs, and decided to... Kyle stopped, then vomited. Tonight, I have the...
Moi.
Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved.
Moi.
Well,
Moi.
I'm very ready, said Rachel with a winning smile. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
And now I can finally ask these questions. Okay, question 1. Ever eaten a raw egg whole?
Hey, Rachel, ever eaten a raw egg whole? Asked Kyle. Like shell and all? Asked Rachel. Kyle continued. I have, like, a lot. It's really bad, though, so sometimes I spit it back up.
Understandable.
There was a silence. It actually gets easier the more you do it, continued Kyle without losing momentum. So don't start, I say.
Okay.
Rachel chose not to answer and looked in another direction. Kyle asked another question.
Let's see. I purposely ran over a puppy. Is your mother a mother? Are you guilty? Yeah, that's a good choice. Okay.
Hey, I ran over a puppy on purpose, said Kyle. Everyone in the studio froze. Kyle spread his hands out wide. It's a joke!
Oh boy.
Nobody laughed with Kyle. Several minutes later, he stopped laughing and moved on. Kyle asked another question.
Are you guilty?
Rachel. Are you guilty? Kyle threw his questions on the floor, stood up, and pointed at her. Rachel's eye twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled disingenuously. Guilty, spat Kyle. Of your crimes! Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching uncontrollably.
Rachel did not answer. Oh, please. Now I want to see what happens normally first.
Kyle asked another question.
Is your mother a mother?
So, said Kyle, my mother is a mother. My mother's mother is her mother and my mother's mother. And many mothers have mother's mother's mother. Is your mother a mother? Rachel went to answer and stopped. I believe, she said eventually, that I should answer yes? After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Rachel, he said, I think that's all I was planning on asking you. If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return? Asked Rachel, smiling one more time. Why exactly did you decide to wear swimming goggles today? Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over. Kyle returned home knowing the interview had gone well.
Oh, yeah.
But as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing.
Maybe. Reset to the interview.
Kyle, sitting across, as Kyle,
Do.
and I as well, Rachel. After a moment,
Start broadcast.
Good evening.
Introduce Rachel.
Kyle.
More.
Rachel,
More.
Kyle.
More.
Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing.
More.
Kyle.
More.
Well,
More. More.
Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
Is your mother a mother?
So, said Kyle, my mother. And Rachel went to it. I believe, she said eventually, that I should answer yes?
Good job.
Kyle asked another question.
Ever eaten a...
Hey, Rachel, ever eaten a raw egg whole? Asked. Like... Kyle continued. There was... It actually gets eaten. Rachel... Kyle asked another question.
I purposely ran over a puppy.
Hey, I ran over a puppy on purpose, said Kyle. Everyone... Kyle spread his hands out wide.
It's a joke!
Nobody laughed with Kyle. Several minutes later, he stopped laughing and moved on.
Yep.
Kyle asked another question.
Are you guilty?
Rachel.
Are you guilty?
Kyle threw his questions on the floor, stood up, and pointed at her. Rachel's eye twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled disingenuously.
Guilty.
Of your
Kyle.
crimes.
Of your crimes.
Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching uncontrollably.
Call police with new phone.
Kyle pulled out his phone and dialed the police. Hello, police, said Kyle. I believe I have found a criminal.
Oh, yeah!
Rachel
Oh,
began to
yeah.
run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of his hand.
Dripping.
Kyle stuck out his leg. Rachel stumbled and crashed to the floor.
More.
But in a moment, she was on her feet. She drew a blunt weapon seemingly out of thin air and started to swing at Kyle. Before Kyle had a chance to react, a figure burst through the roof and blocked Rachel's attack.
Oh, yeah.
It was a middle-aged woman in a bug-shaped mask. She was brandishing a bug-shaped stick. The woman began to fight
It's the
with
bug
Rachel, flicking her
vigilante.
weapon back and forth with surprising speed. Rachel tried to fight back, but it was obvious she was no match for the interceptor.
It was Bug Girl.
With one quick move, the bug vigilante drew her foot high above her head and drove it straight into Rachel's hand.
Okay, so it was the Bug Vigilante. Okay.
The weapon clattered to the floor. Rachel attempted to run again, but was
yeah.
met with a stick to her legs.
Get her.
She fell at the feet of a police officer just arriving from Kyle's call. Rachel was charged with 7 cases of grand larceny.
I have no idea what larceny means, but good job.
After her first month in jail, Rachel started a reality TV show about prison cooking, filmed from her cell.
Okay.
The show gained immense popularity, and somehow the public began to love Rachel all the more.
Cool.
Kyle made guest appearances on Rachel's show many times. The identity of the bug vigilante was never known.
Actually, we do know who it is.
She remained a mysterious but important part of local law enforcement.
Yep. So, what happens if I call them with my old phone? We're almost
Kyle
there.
produced the notes he had
Are
taken.
you guilty
Rachel.
Guilty.
Spat Kyle.
of your crimes?
Rachel did not answer.
Call
Her
police on
eyelids-
old phone.
Kyle whipped out his phone and started dialing the police. Kyle quickly realized that the broken phone he had gotten for free was not able to call anyone.
Oh. Awkward.
Kyle looked sadly at his hand, realizing he had botched a wonderful opportunity to be helpful.
Yeah, it sucks.
Rachel looked at Kyle smiling. Her eyebrows twitched a bit. What's the problem, Kyle? Anything I can help you with? She glared, still smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle looked up from his hand sadly. He slowly shook his head. The interview continued on. Rachel answered questions cheerily.
Okay.
Kyle forced a smile through the entire episode, but he felt very sad inside.
Understandable.
Kyle had missed his chance to be helpful.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. Open the closets. Juice
Kyle decided.
to the farmer.
Kyle-
Mark
After much squeezing,
to the desk. Right notes for interview.
Kyle wrote down.
Do.
Kyle.
Okay. Anything else? Oh yeah, sit at the desk. CD. Dance music. Back to the room. Scavenge.
Kyle
For
quickly.
bucks.
Kyle.
Save for
Kyle
later
stashed
use.
the wriggling mass for later use.
Okay. Exit bedroom to hallway. Move to the kitchen. Open the fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Eat the fridge.
Kyle pointed his neck directly upwards and hoisted the fridge on top of his face. Somehow, miraculously, he wrapped his mouth around the device. He started to swallow. In one slow, horrible movement, the fridge slid down Kyle's throat. After many gurgles, pops, and snaps, Kyle felt relatively sure the fridge would not come back out.
Okay. Well, back to the interview.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman.
Yeah, we
As
know.
Kyle Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. Kyle responded. Kyle stretched it. Was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to... Kyle shoved his producer out of the way. He began to rotate slowly, screaming. After several minutes, Kyle... I'm ready.
Okay.
Rachel blinked.
There we go.
A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Start
Good
broadcast.
evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking at the...
Introduce Rachel.
Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor.
Okay, so eating a fridge is not a good idea.
Rachel looked at Kyle, concerned, gave a couple coughs, and decided to play it cool and keep the show running. Kyle stopped, then vomited again. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who...
Produce CD.
As Rachel started to reply, Kyle clamped it. Hush, he said. I need to do something before we can continue. Kyle removed the CD he had brought to the interview and placed it in a nearby player deck.
Mm-hmm.
The sound system kicked into action, piping Kyle's music throughout the studio. Rachel briefly listened, a blank expression on her face. Smiling, Kyle All right. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
Do you feel guilty?
Rachel, do you feel guilty? Asked Kyle, hitting her with a hard question. I'm sorry, Kyle, said Rachel. What on earth is this music? It's very... Well, it's something.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old favorite, Rachel, said Kyle. This is what I grew up on. It's part of my most special collection. Kyle and Rachel sat silently, the music playing in the background. Rachel began
Okay,
to
so
frown.
it doesn't matter which genre you take?
Suddenly, the wall next to Kyle exploded. Through the hole stepped several men in dazzling, flamboyant costumes of bright color. Kyle, said the man in front.
Okay.
Kyle's jaw dropped. We have come to issue a... The man... Rachel slowly... Have you ever met your...
So it turns out I've redone
As Kyle...
the same ending. Okay. Kyle plays. Okay, so it doesn't matter which. So reset. Exit the bed. Open the closet. Choose an outfit.
Kyle,
Choose a suit of armor.
after much squeak,
Yeah. Write notes for the interview.
Kyle wrote down.
Am I a mother?
Kyle-
Beefed or mished?
Ki-
Okay. Assorted change.
Kyle,
Don't know what for. Scavenge.
Kyle quickly crouched down.
Box.
Soon he
Save for later
Kyle
use. Exit the room. Move to the kitchen. Open the fridge.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Eat crust of ritual.
Kyle started after wadding it into several minutes
Which
of
was still
crunching
bad
later.
food. Yeah. Leave apartment.
As Kyle approached, good. Kyle responded.
Do.
Kyle stopped. Tonight.
Okay.
Kyle. Well, I'm very. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier.
Am I a mother?
Rachel, am I a mother? Kyle looked at her very seriously. Rachel was visibly unsure of how to respond. Well, Kyle, I think you might be a better source of answering that question than I am.
Actually, yeah.
But do you think I'm a mother? Asked Kyle, pushing further. Rachel paused for a second before answering. I think you inspire youth to pursue STEM fields, she answered.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle asked another question.
Beef, mashed or blended?
A burning question from the fans, said Kyle. Beef, do you prefer it mashed or blended? Rachel answered promptly, mashed, and no more was said on that matter. Kyle asked another question.
Do you ever smile?
Do you ever smile? Spat Kyle. Like, seriously. Rachel stopped smiling. If you're gonna be on the show, you need to smile, okay? Said Kyle, not smiling. You're here to get views, and you'll get more views if you smile. Here, I'll show you how. Kyle turned to the camera and gave the audience a huge, teeth-clenched, bug-eyed grimace. Rachel nodded and obviously wanted to move on.
Yep.
Kyle asked another question.
Do you feel guilty?
Rachel, do you feel guilty? Asked Kyle, hitting her with a hard question. Rachel raised her eyebrows. About what specifically, Kyle? Things. Things in general. Life.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel did not answer immediately. I think, she said, that everyone has things they regret, but those things aren't always what others would expect. Rachel
True.
folded her hands in her
Very
lap
true.
and didn't have anything more to say. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper. Well, Rachel, he said. If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return?
Mm-hmm.
Why exactly did you decide to wear a suit of armor today?
Because I felt like it.
Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. Kyle returned home knowing the interview, but as he lay in bed and...
Technically, it was still the same old ending, so... You know what? Let's change Jap.
Kyle thought very carefully about the first move of his day.
Become a hot dog salesman.
Kyle laid in bed for a moment, thinking about the day ahead. He would produce another episode of his long-running show. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle thought about making breakfast, the same breakfast he'd been making for the past 9 years. Kyle thought about the clothes he would wear. They had not changed for a long time. Kyle waited for something new and interesting to enter his head. Something fresh. Something exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle continued to wait. Nothing came to mind.
Nope.
In a sudden moment of inspiration, Kyle threw his covers to the ground and stepped out of bed. Kyle had made a decision. Today would not be part of an old journey. Today would be the start of something new.
Yes, a whole new ending.
Kyle walked over to his desk and opened the middle drawer. He slowly removed an ancient, withered stick of meat.
Oh yeah.
Today, Kyle planned to make good on his childhood passion, the career he had abandoned to become a talk show host.
Oh yeah.
Kyle looked caringly at the crusty hot dog in his hands. Then, he smiled. Then he bent his lips downwards and slowly sucked the hot dog into his mouth and down into his stomach. Kyle had become a hot dog vendor.
He must
now prepare for his first day running a hot dog stand.
Oh yeah. Open closet. Choose an outfit.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance.
Hot dog suit.
Kyle put on his hot dog suit, which he had made by stitching hot dogs together when he was a child.
June suit.
Feeling fairly hungry, Kyle bent over and took a large bite out of his suit. He felt refreshed. It wasn't enough. Kyle continued to eat his clothing. Soon, Kyle had eaten most of the suit. The chunks that were left were enough to act as clothes, but barely.
Okay.
Kyle felt satisfied. The hot dogs had nourished him greatly, functionally giving him more time in his day.
Oh, nice. So I'm back to square one again, huh?
Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for...
hot dogs.
Kyle started looking around for hot dogs. He crawled around, spreading layers of mold to the side with his hands and picking out interesting items.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle couldn't find any hot dogs, but instead he found a pile of love letters he had written in high school.
Okay.
Kyle pocketed the envelopes and got back to his feet.
Sit at desk. Rewrite love letters? Search for hot dogs.
Kyle searched through his desk to find more hot dogs that he could... But Kyle had moved his hot dog stash somewhere else. He shut the desk drawers empty-handed.
Change.
Kyle scooped up the change scattered around the desk drawer.
Rewrite love letters.
Kyle took out the letters from his pocket and set them on the desk. But after a moment, Kyle realized that he did not have any writing utensils.
Okay.
Kyle got...
Exit the hallway. Leave apartment. Visit marketing agency. Approach attendant.
Kyle walked over to the attendant and gave her a big smile.
Purchase marketing.
Kyle walked to the desk and placed his pocket change on the table.
Okay.
How much marketing can I get for this? Asked Kyle. The attendant looked at his offerings. Maybe like a piece of paper on the message board outside? Said the attendant. Kyle wordlessly purchased the flyer and walked out the door.
I realized I still don't have hot dogs. Visit downstairs neighbor.
Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door.
Consume Gabby. Greet and start conversation.
Good morning, neighbor, said Kyle cheerfully. Gabby looked at Kyle expectantly.
Ask Gabby for a pen.
Gabby, this is important, said Kyle. Do you have a pen I could borrow? Kyle, said Gabby, don't you have even a single pen of your own? No, Gabby, said Kyle, clutching her arms and looking into her eyes. I haven't written since high school. Gabby stared at Kyle and pursed her lips. After a moment, she took a pen out of her pocket.
Okay.
Kyle, I'll give you a pen, but please be careful with what you write. Harsh words are a weapon to wield carefully.
True.
Kyle mumbled agreement, took the pen, and skipped away from Gabby's house. Kyle made his way to the street corner.
But I have no hot dogs, so I can sell anything.
After a long day of preparation, Kyle felt very ready for his first outing as a hot dog salesman.
Oh yeah.
Kyle started to unpack his things onto the corner of the street. As Kyle was unpacking, his hand brushed the old love letters he had picked up earlier. He stopped. Something tugged at Kyle's heart. These letters were a piece of himself. These letters were a piece of history.
True.
Kyle realized it was time to give these letters to their original intended recipients.
Do it.
Kyle looked at the top letter of the stack. It was addressed to Abigail, a girl Kyle had liked during high school. Abigail had moved to the other side of the city with her husband a few years ago, but Kyle was willing to make the trip.
Okay.
Kyle skipped away to Abigail's house, letter in hand. It wasn't that Kyle liked Abigail anymore. It wasn't that he missed her. To Kyle, this was more important than that.
Okay, so why are we doing this?
After an hour of walking, Kyle finally reached Abigail's front door. With excitement in his heart, Kyle took a breath and knocked on the door. Abigail opened it. "Kyle," she said, smiling. "What are you doing here? It's been so long." "Abby," said Kyle, "I have something I want to read to you." Kyle took the letter to Abigail, clutched in his hands, and opened it for the first time in 14 years.
That's a very long time. Huh.
"Dear Abby," he read, "I feel funny when I look at you. Sometimes I think about you when I lie awake at night, but also sometimes not, but that's less often. I also talk about you constantly to everyone when you're not around, but it's not always good things. Sometimes I also steal your lunches when you're not looking and keep them in a drawer at my house to look at when I'm bored.
Okay.
I want you to promise me something." Kyle looked at Abby meaningfully. "Promise you like me. And if you do like me, please show me by shoving live fish down your throat as a sign of dedication." Abigail shut the door.
Rejected,
Kyle
buddy.
looked up from the letter and stopped reading. He looked at the door in front of him. He realized that Abigail probably had something to do, so he decided to leave her the letters to read later.
Okay.
Kyle pressed the letters against the door and pushed firmly. He took a nearby rock and drove it through the papers into the door so Abigail could not miss them.
Okay.
With evening dawning, Kyle went home, satisfied that he had finished an old chapter of his life.
Yep.
When Kyle got home, he realized that he loved writing letters to Abigail. He decided that he would continue to do so every day and make her his pen pal. Kyle fell asleep with a smile. It had been a good day.
Yep, it sure have been. Oh, got a pen pal. Okay, so that was our first episode of Kyle Was Famous. I know it's kind of a mess figuring out how to get new endings, but it was still a fun game. So yeah, thanks for watching and see you guys next time.